You actually called the police on your own mother? No. I called them because you stopped acting like my mother the moment you decided my house belonged to someone else.
I used to believe betrayal came with shouting. People always imagine betrayal as broken dishes, slammed doors, and voices loud enough for neighbors to hear. Mine arrived in complete silence. The first sign wasn't an argument. It was a pink suitcase sitting beside my living room couch. For 3 long seconds, I simply stared at it. I knew every object inside my house. Every piece of furniture. Every picture frame. Every scratch on the hardwood floor. I had worked too hard to own this place not to notice when something didn't belong. That suitcase didn't belong. Neither did the women's sneakers neatly lined beside my front door, or the cardigan hanging over the kitchen chair. Someone had been living in my house, and whoever it was hadn't bothered to hide it. I slowly pushed the front door shut behind me. My pulse wasn't racing. Not yet. Confusion has a strange way of delaying panic. I set my work bag on the counter and walked farther inside. The scent hit me first. It wasn't my lavender diffuser. It was an overly sweet vanilla perfume lingering through the hallway. Then I noticed my coffee mugs. One of them was sitting in the sink beside another mug I'd never bought. There were fresh groceries inside my refrigerator. Different brands. Different food. Someone had rearranged my shelves. I stood perfectly still. There was only one person who still had a key to my house besides me. My mother. 3 months earlier, she'd begged me for a spare key. Only for emergencies, she promised. If anything ever happens to you, I don't want firefighters breaking your door down. It sounded reasonable, responsible, even. I handed her the spare key after making one thing painfully clear. Mom, this is only for emergencies. She smiled. You don't have to worry about me. Looking back, that should have worried me. A bedroom door clicked open. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Then my younger sister, Danielle, casually walked into the living room carrying one of my bath towels. She stopped when she saw me. Oh, she smiled. You're home early. Not surprise. Not guilt. Not even embarrassment. Just mild inconvenience. Like I'd interrupted her afternoon. I looked from the towel in her hands to the oversized t-shirt she was wearing. Mine. You got to be kidding me. She laughed awkwardly. Mom said you'd probably be upset at first. At first? I blinked. What are you talking about? She walked into the kitchen, opened my refrigerator without hesitation, grabbed a bottle of orange juice, and poured herself a glass. Inside my own house. Without asking. As though she'd lived there for years. I lost the apartment, she said. You know how landlords are. I didn't answer. She kept talking. Mom figured it didn't make sense for me to waste money on rent when you got all this space. All this space. She said it so casually, as if my 30-year mortgage was an extra bedroom waiting for whoever needed it next. I finally found my voice. Where's Mom? She had errands. When did she do this? Danielle shrugged. Yesterday. Yesterday. While I was away inspecting commercial properties in another city. They had planned everything while I was gone. Every box. Every bag. Every piece of furniture. Every decision. Without one phone call. Without one text message. Without 1 ounce of respect. I walked down the hallway. The guest room door stood open. It wasn't a guest room anymore. The closet was full. Family photos sat on the nightstand. Her cosmetics covered the dresser. She hadn't moved in. She had settled in. There was a printed monthly calendar taped to the wall. I walked closer. Job interviews. Doctor appointments. A grocery list. Plans stretching 3 months into the future. 3 months. Nobody making plans 3 months ahead thinks they're leaving next week. Behind me, Danielle sighed. You don't have to look so offended. I turned slowly. I'm offended because someone broke into my house. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please. It wasn't breaking in. Mom has a key. No, I said quietly. My mother had permission to enter during an emergency. This, I gestured around the room, isn't an emergency. It's trespassing. Danielle folded her arms. We're family. There it was. The sentence I had heard my entire life. We're family. As though those two words erased boundaries. As though they rewrote property laws. As though they transformed my home into community housing. I took a slow breath. Then another. Something inside me became incredibly calm. Not because I was giving in. Because I had just realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a decision. My mother hadn't asked because she already believed she had the authority to decide who lived in my house. And Danielle hadn't asked because she'd been told my opinion didn't matter. Neither of them expected me to object. More importantly, neither of them expected what I was about to do. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Danielle watched me with a puzzled expression. "What are you doing?" Instead of answering, I opened my contacts and tapped one name. Mom. She answered on the second ring. "There you are," she said cheerfully. "I was just about to call you. I just got home." I know. Those two words sent a chill through me. She knew exactly where I was because she'd been waiting for this conversation. "So," she continued, "Danielle settled okay?" I looked toward my sister, who leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping orange juice from my favorite glass. "You moved her into my house." I helped her. "You moved her into my house." There was a brief pause before my mother sighed dramatically. "You make it sound like I committed a crime. You entered my home without permission. I used the emergency key. For an emergency. It was an emergency." "No." I spoke slowly, making sure every word landed. "Losing an apartment is unfortunate. It is not an emergency that gives you permission to move another adult into my home." She laughed softly. "Oh, sweetheart. Don't be so dramatic." The familiar phrase. She'd used it my entire life. Whenever my feelings became inconvenient. Whenever I questioned her decisions. Whenever I refused to quietly accept something unfair. "Danielle is your sister. I know who she is. She needs help." Then she should have asked. My mother became quiet. Then she changed tactics. "You have 3 bedrooms. So, you only use one. So, it seems selfish." I closed my eyes for a second. There it was. Not gratitude. Not an apology. Judgment. As though buying a house somehow obligated me to surrender it whenever someone else wanted a room. "I worked 12 years for this house. And we're proud of you. But family shares." "No," I replied. "Family asks." Silence. The kind of silence that usually meant my mother was deciding which emotional weapon to use next. "Sure enough, I didn't raise you to be this cold. That sentence would have destroyed me 10 years ago. Not anymore. You also didn't buy this house." Her breathing changed. Slower. Sharper. "I think you're letting success change you." "No. I think home ownership taught me boundaries." "You sound ridiculous. You entered private property without permission. I'm your mother, and I'm the homeowner." For several long seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said something that made my stomach tighten. "It doesn't matter." "What?" "Danielle is staying." I frowned. "What did you just say?" "She's already unpacked." "Mom." "She's getting her life together." "Mom." "You're not throwing your own sister out on the street." I looked over at Danielle. She wasn't listening anymore. She had already started scrolling through television channels with my remote, like the conversation had already been decided, like I was the guest. I spoke into the phone one last time. "You have exactly 30 minutes. "For what?" "To come here." "Why?" "Because we're ending this today." She scoffed. "I'll be there." The call ended. Danielle looked up. "What was that about?" "You'll find out." Exactly 27 minutes later, my mother's SUV pulled into the driveway. She didn't knock. She used the spare key again. The front door swung open, and she walked inside carrying 2 shopping bags. As I thought, she smiled. Everyone just needs to calm down. She kissed Danielle on the forehead before setting the bags on my kitchen island. I brought groceries. Neither of them seemed to notice how absurd the situation had become. They were acting like this was a family reunion. My own kitchen. My own groceries already inside the refrigerator. My own house. I remained standing near the living room window. "Give me the key," My mother blinked. What? The spare key? She smiled as though I were joking. Oh, don't be silly. I'm serious. I might need it. You don't. What if something happens? I'll call someone. What if you're unconscious? I'll call emergency services. She folded her arms. I'm keeping the key. No. You gave it to me? I trusted you with it. Same thing. No. They're completely different. She shook her head. I don't understand why you're making this into such a big issue. Because you entered my home without permission. I had a key. Permission and possession aren't the same thing. Her expression hardened. I don't appreciate your attitude. And I don't appreciate coming home to strangers living in my house. Danielle isn't a stranger. Today, she is an unauthorized occupant. Danielle stood up. This is getting ridiculous. No, I replied calmly. It became ridiculous yesterday. My mother stepped closer. Her voice lowered. Listen carefully. I'm your mother. I've sacrificed everything for this family. If I say Danielle needs somewhere to stay, then she stays. I stared at her, not because I was intimidated, because I genuinely couldn't believe she believed that. She honestly thought motherhood gave her authority over property she didn't own, over decisions that weren't hers to make. I realized something then. There wasn't going to be an apology. There wasn't going to be compromise. There wasn't even going to be a conversation. Only compliance. Mine. And that wasn't going to happen. I unlocked my phone. My mother frowned. What are you doing now? I looked directly into her eyes. My next call isn't to another family member. Neither of them understood what I meant. Not yet, but within the next few minutes, they would. My thumb hovered over the screen for less than a second. Then I pressed call. 911. The phone rang once. 911. What's your emergency? My name is Ava Brooks. My mother and my sister entered my home without permission. They refused to leave. The operator's voice remained calm. Are they threatening you? No. Are they refusing to leave after you've asked them to? Yes. Do you own the property? I do. Are they tenants? No. Do they have permission to live there? No. Officers are on the way. I thanked her and ended the call. The room fell into an uneasy silence. Neither my mother nor Danielle had heard the conversation clearly. Mom frowned. Who was that? I slipped the phone back into my pocket. The police. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then my mother laughed. Not nervous laughter. Confident laughter. Oh, Ava, you didn't. I did. She shook her head slowly. You're not calling the police on your own family. I already have. Danielle rolled her eyes. Seriously? You'd rather embarrass us than let me stay here for a while? I'd rather have my house back. Mom stepped closer. This is unbelievable. No, I answered quietly. What was unbelievable was coming home to find someone living in my house. She pointed toward the hallway. That room was empty. It isn't anymore. You weren't using it. It doesn't matter. You become selfish. I looked directly into her eyes. No, I become someone who understands boundaries. She scoffed. You're choosing a house over your family. I'm choosing respect. You've always thought you were better than us. The accusation hung in the air. It wasn't new. Every achievement I'd ever celebrated somehow became evidence that I had changed. Graduating college, buying my first car, getting promoted, purchasing this house. Each milestone became another reason for someone else to feel entitled to what I'd earned. I wasn't going to apologize for succeeding. Not anymore. Danielle crossed her arms. What exactly do you think the police are going to do? They'll tell you to stop being ridiculous. Mom smiled. Exactly. They'll say this is a family matter. I didn't respond, because I knew something they didn't. Property law doesn't change because people share DNA. Minutes crawled by. The silence inside the house became unbearable. Then, blue lights flashed through the front window. Danielle's smile disappeared. Mom looked toward the driveway. A police cruiser rolled to a stop. Then another. The neighborhood suddenly felt much smaller. Curtains across the street shifted. Front doors opened. Curious neighbors stepped onto their porches. Everyone was watching. A firm knock echoed through the house. I walked to the door. Before opening it, I looked back. Neither my mother nor my sister had moved. They still believed this would somehow end in their favor. I opened the door. 2 uniformed officers stood outside. "Good afternoon. I'm Officer Martinez. This is Officer Collins. Did you place the call?" "Yes. I'm Ava Brooks. I own this property." Officer Martinez nodded. "Can we come inside?" "Of course." The officers entered calmly. Professional. Measured. No drama. No assumptions. Officer Collins glanced around the living room before speaking. "So tell us what's happening." I explained everything. The emergency key. The business trip. Coming home. Finding Danielle living inside. Repeated requests for them to leave. Every word. Every detail. Nobody interrupted me. When I finished, Officer Martinez turned toward my mother. "Ma'am." She smiled politely. "Oh, officers. This is all just one big misunderstanding. We're family. My younger daughter lost her apartment, so I helped her move into her sister's guest room." She laughed softly. "I honestly didn't expect all this." Officer Collins remained expressionless. "Did the homeowner give permission?" Mom hesitated. "Well, I'm her mother. That's not what I asked." Silence. Officer Martinez spoke next. "Did she give permission?" "No, but..." He gently raised a hand. "Thank you." He turned toward Danielle. "Do you pay rent here?" "No." "Do you receive mail here?" "No." "Did the homeowner invite you to stay?" Danielle looked toward Mom. Mom nodded slightly, as though coaching her. "I thought..." Danielle began. "My mother had permission." Officer Collins answered before I could. "Permission to possess a key is not permission to move someone into another person's home." The room went silent. Mom frowned. "Surely you're not saying she has to throw her own sister out." Officer Martinez met her gaze. "I'm saying the homeowner has the legal right to decide who lives here. But we're family." "So..." The single word landed like a hammer. "So..." Mom blinked. Officer Martinez continued. "Being related doesn't transfer ownership. It doesn't create tenancy. It doesn't override property rights." The confidence slowly drained from her face. For the first time, she realized the law wasn't on her side. Danielle's voice became smaller. "So, what happens now?" Officer Collins answered calmly. "You'll need to gather your belongings and leave." Mom immediately stepped forward. "This is absurd." She's making an emotional decision. Officer Martinez remained perfectly composed. "No, she's making a legal one." Mom's face reddened. "I raised her. I sacrificed everything. I have every right." "No, ma'am." Officer Martinez interrupted gently but firmly. "You don't." Silence. Absolute silence. Outside, another neighbor stepped onto their porch. Across the street, someone quietly lifted a phone, pretending to text while obviously recording. Mom noticed. Her pride cracked before her composure did. "This is humiliating." Officer Collins looked at her. "It didn't have to be." Danielle lowered her eyes. "For the first time since I come home," she looked uncertain. She quietly walked toward the guest room. Without another word, she began packing her things. The sound of cardboard boxes opening echoed through the hallway. The same boxes that had welcomed her into my home were now carrying her back out. I stood in the living room, watching, not with satisfaction, with relief, because my house was finally starting to feel like mine again. Nearly 40 minutes later, Danielle carried the last suitcase toward the front door. Mom refused to look at me. She grabbed one end of the suitcase. Before stepping outside, she finally spoke. "This isn't over." I met her eyes. "It is." Officer Martinez stood beside the doorway. "Ma'am, you've now been formally instructed to leave this property. If you return without permission, future incidents may carry more serious consequences." Mom stared at him, then at me. "I hope you're happy." I answered honestly. I'll be peaceful. Without another word, she walked outside. Danielle followed. The officers remained until both women drove away. The flashing blue lights disappeared down the street. Officer Martinez handed me a case number. If anything else happens, he looked directly at me. Call us immediately. I will. He nodded once. So far, this has ended peacefully. I hope it stays that way. So do I. The officers left. I closed the front door, locked the deadbolt, then leaned against it. The house was silent again. For the first time in days, I could breathe. I thought it was finally over. I couldn't have been more wrong. The silence lasted exactly 48 hours. No phone calls. No angry voicemails. No relatives demanding explanations. Nothing. It almost felt unnatural. I should have known my mother wasn't accepting defeat. She was planning her next move. Saturday morning arrived wrapped in soft rain. I woke just after 6. The house felt peaceful again. For the first time in nearly a week, I made coffee without feeling like someone else was watching me inside my own kitchen. I carried my mug into the living room. Rain tapped gently against the windows. It almost felt like my life was returning to normal. Then my phone vibrated. Motion detected. Front door camera. I frowned. No deliveries were scheduled. I opened the security app. The coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. My mother stood on my front porch. She wasn't alone. Beside her knelt a man wearing a gray work jacket. A black toolbox rested beside him. He removed several lock-picking tools with practiced confidence. My stomach tightened. The man inserted a long metal tool into my front door. Scrape, twist, click. He wasn't guessing. He knew exactly what he was doing. My mother folded her arms and calmly watched him work. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't hesitant. She looked patient, as though she genuinely believed the house would soon belong to her daughter. I whispered to myself, "No." The scraping continued. Without taking my eyes off the screen, I dialed 911. The operator answered immediately. 911, what's your emergency? My mother is outside my house with a locksmith. They're trying to open my front door. Has anyone entered the residence? Not yet. Stay inside. Units are on the way. I remained upstairs. Every camera in the house displayed the same thing. The locksmith working. My mother waiting. Neither one looked around. Neither suspected they were being recorded. Another metallic click echoed through my speakers. The deadbolt shifted. Then, sirens. The locksmith immediately stood up. My mother spun toward the street. 2 police cruisers turned the corner. Then a third. Blue and red lights flooded my driveway. Officers stepped out quickly. Hand where we can see them. The locksmith immediately dropped every tool. I can explain. My mother stepped forward. This is all a misunderstanding. One officer looked directly at the lock. Another picked up the scattered tools. A third recognized my mother instantly. Ma'am. His expression changed. We spoke 2 days ago. She forced a smile. I was only trying to help my daughter. The homeowner called us. You were previously warned not to return. The locksmith looked completely confused. I thought she owned the property. He pointed toward my mother. She told me this was her house. Every officer looked at her. She said nothing. One officer finally asked, "Is this your property?" Silence. No. Do you have permission to enter? Silence again. No. The handcuffs came out. Not for the locksmith. For my mother. She stared in complete disbelief. What are you doing? You are being detained while we investigate attempted unlawful entry and providing false information. You can't arrest me. I'm her mother. The officer answered calmly. Today, you're the complainant's mother. Nothing more. She looked toward the house. Toward me. I stepped onto the porch for the first time. Rain landed softly on the concrete between us. You called him again? I nodded. You tried to break into my house. I was protecting your sister. No, I answered quietly. You were ignoring my answer. She shook her head. You've chosen strangers over your own family. I looked at the officers, then back at her. I chose the law. She had no reply. The police vehicle door closed. As it pulled away, she never looked back. The locksmith apologized before leaving. I genuinely believed she owned the place. I never would have touched your lock if I'd known. I know. He handed one of the officers his written statement, then quietly walked away. That afternoon, I decided to remove the last reminder of everything that had happened. Danielle had left a few cardboard boxes inside the guest room closet. Old blankets, shoes, a small storage bin. I carried everything into garage. Behind the final box, I noticed a large manila envelope taped to the back wall of the closet. No label, no name. Curious, I opened it. My heart stopped. Inside were documents, utility applications, mail forwarding forms, residency declarations, a typed agreement stating Danielle had lived in my home for months. There was even a lease agreement. My signature appeared at the bottom, except it wasn't mine. Someone had forged it. I sat down on the bedroom floor. Everything suddenly made sense. They weren't simply trying to help Danielle. They were trying to create evidence. Evidence that she legally lived here. Evidence that could have turned my own house into a nightmare of court hearings, delays, and expensive legal battles. The room suddenly felt colder. The following morning, I met my attorney, Benjamin Carter. He carefully reviewed every page. He adjusted his glasses, then looked directly at me. These aren't mistakes. They're deliberate. He laid the forged lease on his desk. If these had ever been filed, you could have spent years proving they were fake. I swallowed hard. So what happens now? He closed the folder. Now, we make sure nobody ever gets the chance. Over the next several weeks, everything happened quietly, exactly the way real justice usually does. Statements, security footage, forensic handwriting analysis, the locksmith's testimony, police reports. Every piece fit together. No dramatic courtroom speeches. No shouting. Just facts. The investigation confirmed the signatures were forged. The residency documents had been prepared before Danielle ever moved into my house. It hadn't been an emotional decision. It had been a plan. My mother eventually accepted a legal settlement that included financial penalties, mandatory legal restrictions preventing her from entering or interfering with any property I owned, and a permanent order requiring all future contact to go through legal counsel if it concerned my home. Danielle quietly left the city soon afterward. I never asked where she went. For the first time, I didn't feel responsible for saving someone who had never respected me. A month later, every lock had been replaced. A new security system protected every entrance. Smart locks, motion sensors, 8 exterior cameras, no spare keys, no hidden copies, no exceptions. One Saturday morning, I stood on my front porch holding a cup of coffee. The same porch where police cars had once filled the driveway. Now, children rode bicycles down the street. Neighbors walked their dogs. The rain was gone. The house finally felt like home again. Not because it was bigger. Not because it was quieter. Because it was safe. I used to believe loving your family meant saying yes. Even when it hurt. Even when it cost you your peace. Now I know something different. Love without boundaries becomes permission. Respect begins with one simple word. No, that single word cost me relationships I thought would last forever. But it gave me something far more valuable. My freedom. As I locked my front door before leaving for work, I smiled. Not because I had won. Because I no longer had a fight. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to let someone rewrite your life simply because they share your last name. And for the first time in a very long time, I drove away knowing that when I came home, my home would still be mine.